Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome, or maybe it's welcome back to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio out of New York. I am Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is A World of Difference. I am so excited to be able to share this platform, this stage, with the one and only man of the hour. Actually, we have two men of the hour today. I'm very lucky. It's Mr. Hardeep. Welcome.
Jacalyn, you only have one man of the hour, just to clarify that.
It's
How
so
are you,
nice
Jacalyn?
to see you. I'm doing well, thanks. How about you?
Very well, thank you. Lovely to see you too and to be here again. It's just incredible how time flies, isn't it?
No, it just week after week, and every show, I feel like there's so much valuable content that is provided and presented by our guests, and then the time just flies by and it's time to go. I hate that.
I know. Well, we have a great show today as well, don't we?
We sure do. And before we bring out our guests today, I want to spotlight you and have you share with us what it is you're doing with the Kaleidoscope Group and why we're doing this show.
Thank you, Jacalyn. Well, welcome everyone again. As always, we're here to celebrate people of difference in a world of difference, and that's the title behind the show that Jacalyn and I have created. So we're delighted today to host somebody that's been well known to me for quite some time, actually. And I'm going to do an introduction for him shortly, but Kaleidoscope, Jacalyn, as you always very kindly ask, is all about helping people with different types of disabilities and backgrounds to really maximize their potential and sort of, whether it's to become entrepreneurs or find employment, that's what we're all about. And we're also about educating corporations and companies about disability awareness and diversity and helping them to really understand the potential of many different types of people with disabilities, whether those are physical and obvious or whether those are cognitive and hidden, whatever it might be. That's what Kaleidoscope is here to do. So I think, Jacalyn, what I'll do with that short introduction is probably do an introduction for Dhiren now. Normally what we do on this show is we hand over to our guests when they're about to do an introduction. But today I'm going to say a few words about Dhiren. So the first thing I'm going to say is Dhiren is actually known to me as a friend for almost 10 years. So we started off as friends, and that over a period of time, we started to work together in different capacities. And I must say, when I was looking through his profile today and reading through everything he's done, I sort of had to pinch myself and think, oh my goodness, this is, someone that's really quite humble, funnily enough, and doesn't talk too much about these things, but there are some incredible achievements. So today's show is really about mental health in the workplace, Jacalyn, as you sort of said. And the workplace could be as a startup, or it could be actually in the workplace itself. And Dhiren, our guest today, Dhiren Master, has achieved many things over the last 4 decades. And some of the highlights are as follows. He got a scholarship to study at Cambridge University, where he graduated as an engineer. He then went on to do an MBA at one of the top business schools and graduated with a distinction. He was a partner in a renowned strategy consulting company. He was head of strategy worldwide for a FTSE top 50 company at the age of 34. He's been a CEO at 7 different startups, one of which he raised over $14 million in funding. He's worked in India, Canada, the USA, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Brazil across multiple sectors. He's won several marketing awards for both B2B and B2C, and 2 of those were for QuickFit, where he was marketing director. He set up 7 businesses of his own, and he has a patent on a charcoal oven, and has also authored a book that is available on Amazon. However, there is another side to you, isn't there, Dhiren? Would you like to tell us a little bit more, sir?
Wow. Woo! That was amazing. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Jacalyn. It's just an absolute pleasure to be here. And Hardeep, thank you very much. And my goodness, what an intro. I feel very embarrassed.
Well, I just had to do that for you, Dhiren. I mean, it is quite incredible what you've done. And you noticed I didn't mention some of those companies as well. So over to you, because it's fascinating. We really look forward to hearing your story now, Dhiren.
Well, thank you for the introduction, and Jacalyn, thank you as well, and good afternoon to everyone, or good evening, whatever the time of day might be for the audience out there. Yeah. So one of the things, you know, when you hear things like that, and you think, oh wow, you know, this person must be really happy and really happy with all the kinds of things that he's done. The truth is that from age 14 and for over 4 decades. 40 years, I have been suffering from depression and suicidal thoughts. So, you know, during all of that period, with all of the achievements, both in school, education, business school, etc., and in the workplace, I have been suffering from depression and suicidal thoughts. I mean, obviously, I haven't, you know, I'm still here to tell the tale, and one of the reasons is that over that period of time I developed a whole bunch of coping mechanisms in terms of how to deal with when I feel incredibly depressed. And one of the things is that there's and this is the whole point is that, you know, with something like depression, is that people are living with it and they have a bunch of coping mechanisms, and for the most part, unless they tell you, you probably won't know that they are suffering from it because their coping mechanisms are so good. One of the companies I used to work at, where I was a chief marketing officer, is a company called Salary Finance, a fintech providing financial well-being products to people. And we did a survey of over 10,000 employees in the UK and 12,000 employees in the US. And about 35% of people in the UK and a similar number in the US, and these are people in employment, suffer from depression. And a similar number, similar percentage also suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. Now, those are huge numbers. And the other frightening thing is that in the UK, those that earn over £100,000 a year, so these are kind of top executives, C-suite, people, that number of people who suffer from depression and worse than that is over 40%. And so you're thinking, you know, how can somebody in that position do that? And one of the things is that, you know, I have been very reluctant to talk about how I am until very recently, and part of it is because I was working at Salary Finance, and when I did the research, etc., I realized, my goodness, I thought I was a minority, but, you know, there are a lot of people out there. And one of the things is that if you are suffering from either depression or anxiety, and you have been able to be quite successful despite that, it means that you've developed a whole bunch of coping mechanisms. And it means that those that have those coping mechanisms are successful with those coping mechanisms are incredibly resilient. And of course, to succeed in life is that it's very rare that things all go like a bed of roses, and you encounter a lot of obstacles. And so you need resilience. And you know, I mean, like Hardeep said, is that I have had a corporate career, but I'm now on my 8th startup. I've had 7 that didn't go as according to plan. So there's a lot of misses, a lot of failures there, and you need a lot of resilience to kind of pick yourself up and get going. And actually, one of the things is that, you know, is that people who do have mental health issues, but also, you know, people who have disabilities, but are getting on with life, you know, I think the world needs to look at them quite differently. And rather than thinking, oh, you know, oh, I'm not sure whether that person will do it. Thinking, oh my God, that person has done so much despite having these handicaps. That person is somebody who's got resilience. That person is a winner. That person can handle obstacles and overcome them. And I think, you just need to, I think there's a really should be a tectonic change in terms of the way people look at this. And also, allowing people who are like me, who are suffering from depression, to be okay to talk about it and not think, well, if I talk about it, I might get fired.
Wow.
I wasn't expecting that.
I was about to say, Dhiren, that was really powerful. And as a male, as a man, if I could just first of all thank you so much for tackling this mental health problem, especially from a men point of view, because there's a lot of men that are very proud, and especially in corporate world, they don't like to admit and talk about their mental health. But you've not just spoken about depression, you've spoken about failure, you've spoken about suicidal thoughts, you've spoken about coping mechanisms, you've just laid it out there in one go, which is really brave. So thank you very much for first of all taking the first step in being so open and honest. Sorry, I interrupted. Were you going to say something, Dhiren?
No, actually, in the stats, men suffer in the two surveys that we did. So it's 12,000, a lot of people in the US, and 10,000 UK. Men suffered more from depression than women.
Wow.
And you're right. Is that men don't talk about it because it's not a guy thing, is it? We don't talk about feelings. We don't talk about that kind of stuff. And actually, it's really bad because there are people that are really suffering, and if they only knew that, they're not. And then one of the things, of course, you're doing this stuff and you don't know anybody else is doing it, and you think, oh my God, there's something wrong with you, and that only just makes you feel even more depressed because you're different. In my case, is that a lot of my depression comes from the fact that I always felt that I am different and I don't fit in, and that's kind of like the underlying fundamental reason for why, because I feel that I am different, and I am different, but is that it just means that I feel maybe I'm not right for society.
You just prompted me with another question with what you've just said, but actually my original question was going to be because I recently also, Dhiren, started talking about postnatal depression relating to men and how I felt after Ishan, right? And I was prompted to do that from a post that recently happened. What you said that you started talking about mental health more recently. What was it that prompted you to start being more open about this in a way that you are starting to help other men as well, would you say?
Well, I guess two things, right? Firstly is the last company that I worked at before HR Clarity, this one that I've set up, was a company called Salary Finance. And that company provides a financial well-being benefit as a product for employers to give to their employees to help their employees get out of debt. Now, the reality is that if you have financial problems, is that you're 3 to 4 times more likely to suffer from either anxiety and panic attacks and or depression and suicidal thoughts. So it has a huge impact on mental health, and the research basically showed that out. And as a result of the company basically talking about well-being, financial well-being, and overall well-being, is also because we are providing that as a service and a benefit to others, is that within the organization there was a real openness to talk about well-being. And so I volunteered to talk about my own mental health challenges, because I knew that, for a long time I didn't even realize that I was depressed until probably I was 40, because, it wasn't the kind of thing that, this is a lot. When I was 30, what was that? When I was in the early 1990s. So, a while back. And so all of this stuff about mental health and well-being, and I think it just wasn't something that anybody talked about at all. And I didn't realize that I had a condition. I was just getting on with life. And I realized that if there had been help and support out there for me, is that it would just make life a lot easier rather than trying to have to, be on your own in battling this. And I just thought, well, look, and I knew from the survey, if salary finance was a representative of the UK, so there's over 100 employees, so that meant there would be 30 people in the company that probably are suffering from depression. And I wanted to reach out to them and say, look, I'm doing this, and these are the coping mechanisms I found. And if you want to come and talk to me, I'm happy to be there. And then many people did reach out to me, and obviously privately. And it's very, very important because it's one of the things is that you are not alone. You are not alone. And I wish I was alone. But it's really, I mean, it's an epidemic.
And what would you say, Dhiren? I mean, there's two obvious follow-ups from what you've just said. I mean, from an employee perspective, what would you say to employees that are listening to this show right now that might be feeling depressed, or they may have suicidal thoughts, or they may be in a really bad place? So from an employee perspective, and actually, what would you then say from an employer perspective? Because I think there's a lot of fear amongst employees about revealing how they're feeling because their employers might be judging them or worry about their output of work. What could we say to employers to encourage employees to be more open?
So I mean, this is in a nutshell. I was able to talk about this at Salary Finance because that was their mission. Is all about improving well-being of people, and so if in any way they were penalizing me for being like this, then there'd be a problem. Now, you think, well, how can you be a great marketing director or chief marketing officer if you're suffering from depression? I mean, aren't you supposed to be, really? I am, but is one of the things and one of the reasons why people don't talk about it, because it's the fear of being judged, and that if they reveal what condition that they have, then that they might be fired or may not get a promotion, and so that's why they don't talk about this. Look, the reality is that I don't know, and it all depends on the kind of organization that you're in. Is that I could trust Salary Finance. I could trust the CEO. A CEO and I, we got on very well, and so there was a good level of trust. And because there was trust, I was able to talk about it. Now, if for whatever reason, as an employee, you do not feel that you have that level of trust with your employer, then don't talk about this to anybody that you do not trust. So trust is really important. And as an employer, the fundamentally is that you have to establish trust. And that trust goes beyond the employment contract. The trust is beyond that, right? Is that do your employees trust your employee? Do your employees trust you as an employer? Now, unfortunately, the answer to that question is actually most employees do not trust their employer, and there are some employers where hardly any of the employees trust them, and other employers are doing a lot better. So and I think that's really important. Is that trust, establishing trust between employers and employees, between your employees is absolutely fundamentally numero uno thing that you need to do. And without that, you're not going to be able to create an environment where people can talk openly about their mental well-being, or talk openly about anything really. And so that's it. And for individuals out there, is that if you are one of those people that are unfortunately in an organization that you don't trust, I just want to let you know is that there are a lot of us out there. There are a lot of us out there, right? You are not alone. I have set up a LinkedIn group which allows people to talk about their coping mechanisms, etc. So you're happy to join us there. If you want to do it more privately, you can reach out to me, private message on LinkedIn, or there's also my email as well if you wanted to do that. And so, you know, I just want to let you know is that you're not alone. Okay, you're not alone, and you don't have to be alone in this. So, I mean, that's what I would say.
Thank you so much. I've got 100 questions, but one that I'd really like to just pose to you. When we think about depression or mental health, what, if any, correlation is there or could there be between the environment that you're in? Let's say it's the workplace and you really feel every day that you're just beaten down over and over again, and you just feel so bad about yourself. Or at home, you're in a situation where it's not working and you become depressed. Is there a correlation there that it can be situational, and that if you remove yourself that from that it could change?
Oh, Jacalyn, absolutely. You know, 100% is that I have been in quite toxic environments. And, you know, if you're in a toxic environment and you're finding that the level of, you know, in my case, if your frequency of suicidal thoughts or the frequency of anxiety or panic attacks is increasing, you need to leave that environment. Now, you know, sometimes it's difficult, right? Because, you know, we're stuck in this kind of rat race where we need to have income coming in and all the rest of it. And sometimes it's not easy. However, I would say is that if you are in that environment which is toxic to you, it is damaging you and it's harming you. You're not able to operate at your best, and you need to leave, because if you don't, is that you're ending up just kind of allowing yourself to be annihilated by that toxicity. And definitely, you know, the number one thing is the environment. And if you happen to unfortunately be in a toxic environment or around where your colleagues are not supportive, or actually worse is that actually exasperating the situation where they are you feel that they're beating you up, or you feel that they're creating undue stress and anxiety when, you know, making mountains out of molehills, etc. You need to escape ASAP. You need to get on that escape plan ASAP. Now, of course, the problem is that when you're suffering from mental health conditions like this, it's just difficult to have the motivation to the escape plan. But the escape plan should be your numero uno priority escape plan.
Thank you for sharing that. And we have a comment before I show it. I would also think that once you realize it's situational and you have this escape plan, that you must feel more peace. You must feel like, okay, I've accepted that this is because of where I am and what I'm doing, and I can see the light. I just have to go through the door and get there.
Now, I've escaped jobs, I've escaped countries, I've escaped continents.
You are incredible. We do have a comment from Ricky McKenna. Hello, dear friend Ricky. Interesting. Trust is a huge factor in any association or relationship. Thank you for being there, especially at this time when people feel so isolated.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's thank you, Ricky. And you know, one cannot underestimate. You know, COVID has been devastating. Is that, can you imagine that if you are with a partner or somebody at home who is creating an environment which is leading to you to suffer from increased anxiety or depression, you're now locked in with that person. And, you know, it's terrible. And there are so many people, unfortunately, where the only escape that they had was to the workplace was the safe environment for them. Even children, you know, and sometimes, I mean, you know, I don't think we can really underestimate is that the number of children where school is an escape, where at home is not safe for them. I mean, honestly, I don't even know. I mean, I'm just making that comment. This is making me feeling quite sad and upset about this. But this is the true, you know, the brutality of this pandemic and the lockdown, on the impact that it's had on people. Is just absolutely incredible. And I just want, you know, Ricky, you know, thank you. Is that, yes, you know, I want everybody to have a little bit more compassion out there for people, because, you know, this has been really, I mean, it's tough on everybody, but especially for people who happen to be locked in with people who, unfortunately, for whatever reason, are exasperating the situation for them. Not great.
Yeah, that's really great that you brought that out, because we've interviewed other people here and they've talked about domestic violence. It's a pandemic within a pandemic where you just can't even get out.
These are the silent stats, right? No, we just don't know. I mean, the tip of the iceberg. I mean, when I first did this survey, I thought the number might be 15 or 20%. Yeah. And I double check, quadruple check. I got another 5 other people to check that my numbers were correct. And but 30 to 40%, Jackie. I mean, that is just absolutely staggering. UK and US. What are we doing?
We need to do something differently. Well, I have a question for both of you. You talked about trust, which is obviously huge. And in some cases, people want to make a change, but they really feel that they can't, because if I leave my job, where am I going to get that income? And how am I going to look for the job while I'm still here and I'm depressed? When is it appropriate to go to HR, to human resources, and say, hey, I'm trusting you. This is what's going on. I don't want my supervisor to know, or my peers, but is it possible for you to put me somewhere else in the organization? Or is it possible for you to somehow intervene on my behalf anonymously?
Well, I would say when is the right time? The right time is ASAP. Okay. Now, the whole point being, though, is unfortunately, is there are some incredibly great HR departments out there, but there are also other HR departments that basically act primarily to keep management safe. And if you happen to be in one of those organizations, then I would counsel caution. So it might just make things worse for you, especially if say, for example, the person that's making life miserable happens to be your line manager, and your line manager happens to be very pally with the HR people, then there's a problem. All right. So I mean, look, I mean, ultimately, I would really urge, as soon as you're starting to feel this, that something's not right, you need to get the escape plan in, because it's highly likely. I mean, unfortunately, there's this other stat is that there's a lot of predatory behavior out there in the corporate world, and unfortunately, the corporate world and corporate systems actually are. If you happen to be a sociopath, you will rise to the top, because they are set up in a way. That it promotes all kinds of really weird behaviors. So generally speaking, is that if you're in an environment where your line manager is giving you trouble, and if there are soft ways that you can try and do this and see whether or not what happens when you do make a complaint. Or when you say something, does it get back to your line manager? Does things make it worse? So you can start off gently. But if you're finding that HR is not helping, that actually it's just making things worse, then the escape plan has to be in there. But I would do this immediately. I mean, as soon as you're feeling this, you need to take some kind of action. And I would try with HR first, see how it goes. Because you want to get the sense that they're going to be supportive and not make things worse for you, because that's going to be the worst kind of scenario. I'm sorry, it's just being. I mean, maybe my own set of experience has been a bit stilted, but there are great HR departments out there. But if you're in an environment where your line manager is giving you a lot of trouble, and there are others that are feeling the same thing, then there might be a pattern of toxicity within the organization that may just not be limited to your team. Unfortunately.
Do you know, if I was to answer that question, Jacalyn, from my personal experiences, funnily enough, Dhiren, HR wouldn't have been the department I would have gone to. But one thing I learned throughout my city career is that I never wanted a line manager to determine my future if I was unhappy about something. And so what I did in my previous company is I became friendly with, this might sound not the right thing to say, but actually sometimes when you're in the corporate world, it is about your own survival as well, right? So actually I would find other allies that might be in management that I could talk to and I could trust, that could steer me into other departments within the business as well. And that's what I did. And that's how I ended up surviving 13 years in one company, because I just made friends in the right places, which sounds very political, but actually that's what you had to do. And there were roles where I was actually quite depressed because I felt there was a glass ceiling. I wasn't going anywhere. I resigned, and then I actually spoke to someone else, and they created another opportunity. So I think sometimes you have to play the political game, but the problem is, and you alluded to this earlier, if you're already not of sound mind, or you're already in a place where you're not operating at your maximum level, that could be a very difficult decision to make. And a lot of people would automatically reach out to HR. And actually, do you think, Dhiren, that HR over the years has improved? Because I know
no, it definitely has. I mean, you know, one of the things that this is not a stat that I got, but there's another organisation in the UK that has been monitoring mental health, and also the extent to which employees are ready to talk about their mental health issues. And they did this first survey about 7 years ago, and only 10% of employees were okay to talk about mental health issues at work because they simply didn't trust the employer. Now that I don't know what the latest stat is, but 5 years later, that 10% had risen to 50%.
Wow.
So there is definitely, you know, HR is really, really improving. And at the end of the day, is that, I mean, you talked about you need to talk to somebody who you can trust. Now, if it's somebody in HR, great. If it's another line manager, great. But you need to figure out, can I trust this person? And that's why I'm saying is that you just need to do things a little bit, you're trying to find out whether or not you can trust this individual. And that's key. And at the end of the day, it is a relationship between two people. So within an organization is that, you know, there could be all kinds of problems going on. But if you are able to establish trust with a few trusted, you know, and then you're able to kind of, you know, get by. But trust is, can you trust that person is absolutely key.
Really good points. We've got another comment, which we're going to go to in a minute. Something else I just want to add, because I always like to give a different perspective as well, is that I was very sick for 28 years in my corporate career. And I reached out to a coach because I felt like I didn't see that it was tied to what I was doing, because I feel like I loved my career, but it actually wasn't a good fit for me. And I met with a coach. She's still my coach, Mariska Duprier. And basically through the coaching sessions, realized that I was in a place that I didn't feel was a good fit, and that I was sick all the time. And we put together a plan. And once we had that plan in place, then I was able to come up with the goal, which was to resign by a certain date. And I did it. And all of a sudden my health improved. So
brilliant.
Yes.
and I mean, but that's exactly right. Is that, you know, is so often is now I've helped a number of people do that and that make them realize is that, you know, the environment that they're in is so toxic that the best thing that they can do is leave. But it's so difficult, right? It's so difficult, and you need somebody to help you. With somebody helping you, and like that coach that you had is great. And that person, obviously, the coach was not in the organization.
Right.
Is that you? But you need to reach out to, if you can. It's ideal. It's going to be always a lot better if you can find somebody to help you, or otherwise, you know, you're going to end up having to be reliant on yourself. But you know this. It's not you. Okay. If you're feeling this way, is that, you know, you if you're also in some environments, is that you both think, oh well, look, you know, people say, well, Dhiren, it's your fault. It's 99% you. It's not us. It's not true. It's that, you know, there's it takes two to tango, and sometimes it's the other person that's actually doing it, that's creating that kind of environment for you, and making you feel that it's all your fault. And unfortunately, there are some people that are very good at making at blame shifting and making you feel that you're the problem, but it's just not true. And it really pains me. But you're right. Is that, you know, it can be within the organization, it can be outside the organization. Somebody that you can trust that can help you start making the moves, and changing the environment is absolutely critical.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We've got another comment from Ricky McKenna, and she writes, ouch, it seems that it has been a systematic part of the pandemic. Do you think there's a way to help people at home realize and acknowledge that they have choices? I think people fear the unknown of an escape as much as their current situations.
No, I mean that's the point, right? Is that, you know, I mean, this is why we have that phrase, don't we? Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And I mean, that's the problem, right? I mean, the problem is that, you know, is the fear of the unknown. That what if it's worse than this? And I mean, I don't know what to say. Is that, look, it's just not true. Just forget all these better the devil you know, the devil you don't. I mean, I don't know whoever came up with that was way into manipulation. So, but you just, and that's why I think, you know, you just got to try and reach out and know. I mean, there are so many great organizations out there. There are so many good jobs. There are so many good people. If you happen to be with an environment that is toxic, there are lots of non-toxic environments out there. Loads of them. There are. But I also realize is that change is the hardest thing for any one of us to do. You know, we do not generally like change. Is that change is difficult. You know, Mahatma Gandhi said once is that be the change that you want to see in the world. You know, you can't change the world, but you can change yourself. But it's difficult to change yourself. It's difficult. So all I can say, you know, and there's a great point that you made, is that if you happen to know someone, a neighbor, a friend, a family member, or whatever, and you see that they, you know, maybe not as perky as they were, or you know, they is that you could reach out to them and say, look, is everything okay? Is there anything I can do that can help? And you know, I think if we all made that effort, that would go a long way, because it's highly unlikely that they will reach out to you, because they will just be feeling I mean, obviously, Dr. Jackie, you did it. You did reach out to the coach, so well done. You know, 100%. But if generally speaking, is that if you are sensing that, and you know, a neighbor, friend, family member, whatever it is, then maybe you could be that person that would help them, give them that support to make those critical changes, because they will. It's incredibly difficult to get out of a doom loop. I mean, the definition of a doom loop is that you get stuck in it, and the only way that you can get out of doom loop is for an exogenous event or a person to be able to take you out of it.
You know what? I love what you just said. I want to elaborate and just have both of you weigh in on this, because I think it's an important point. In many cases, we realize there's an issue, but our people in our lives that we're with all the time, they're not on board with us making the change. What do you mean you're going to leave the job? How are we going to pay for all the, you know, and so it goes on and on. So what I also like to suggest to people is, and my friend Red O'Laughlin, one of our team members, he always talks about this. We can look at the symptoms, but what's the source? Okay, so the symptoms, we're depressed, we're downtrodden, we're tired. What's the root cause of why that's happening? And so once we can start to eliminate certain things and really zone in on it, then we can take action knowing that we've actually assessed this ourselves without a coach or without talking to HR or anyone else. You don't feel well. That's a problem. What's the cause? And then how do you come up with a solution?
So the simplest thing is this: is that there's a complex. It's a very a simple question, but actually it's a complex answer. But I'm going to give a simple answer. Look, in a very, very simplistic way, is what happens is we end up in a certain set of patterns of behavior, And those patterns of behaviors are predicated on the fact because of the people that we're interacting with. And if you happen to be in a pattern of behavior that you're not happy with, then it's likely, and you've been continuing to have that pattern of behavior for a while, it's likely that the people that you're around are reinforcing that pattern of behavior. And what happens is that once we are in a pattern of behavior, is that somehow our subliminal mind does not like change. So it seeks out other people that will unfortunately keep you in that same pattern of behavior. And so it's highly likely that it's the people that are around you that are not helping you. And so you have to change the environment. So either you have to change the workplace, or you have to change who you're spending time with. Because if you don't do that, then unfortunately that other individual or individuals that you're interacting with will keep you in that pattern of behavior, because they're also stuck in that pattern of behavior, and it kind of becomes a coupling where each of you is keeping the other person in that particular pattern of behavior because it suits them too. And this is human nature. So if you happen to find that the same things keep on happening over and over again, and so then it's highly likely that you are completely surrounded by the same type of people, and you continue to be and the only way that you can do that is to break free, is to escape from those particular individuals. Incredibly difficult to do. This is not easy. Believe me, it is not easy to do. It is not easy. I mean, I have found it incredibly difficult to do as well. Sometimes it can take 20, 30 years to break out.
20 or 30 years.
Do you know, I would probably say something similar to Dhiren, Jacalyn, but I probably couldn't say it as eloquently as Dhiren has said it. But the one thing I would say, and I've acknowledged this myself, is that I couldn't agree with Dhiren more, is that our default people to speak to tend to be the people that we're surrounded by. And that's why I love what you said about an independent coach, Jacalyn. I think that's really powerful, because an independent coach is not influenced, or it's got no unconscious bias. They just look at your life as an individual, and they can give you advice, someone external to your circumstances. And I think as one of our takeaways from today, because we were actually saying at the beginning of this session, weren't we, Jacalyn, is sort of what are the key takeaways today, especially that this is the last show of our year, is that, coming into 2022 and beyond, is to really think about today's show, because I think Dhiren has made some really, really powerful points, not just about business, but about personal, about COVID, about where we've all been, about the challenges that we're facing, and actually how to create an escape plan. And we don't want to create an escape plan that necessarily means that you do the wrong thing or you do something that's rash. It has to be very well thought out, of course. But I think, talking about speaking to somebody external to your circumstances is probably a really good starting point. Someone that can give you a different perspective, that can give you some balance, and that isn't, directly related to whether you stay in a job or whether you stay with a partner or whatever that might be. I think that's probably really important.
Yeah, it could be a coach, could be a therapist, could be a neighbor.
Exactly. Just somebody that's independent to your circumstances. Do you know, it's funny, Dhiren, because earlier on in this session, I had a question, which was, what are your coping mechanisms, or what would you give advice on? Yeah, exactly. But in a way, I sort of think we've in some respects, I think we've answered that through talking in the way that we have.
I mean, one of them is change your environment.
Yeah.
We've got a follow-up from Ricky. By the way, Ricky is our co-host for the United Kitchens. She is a celebrity chef and also a certified nutritionist. She writes, change is not a 4-letter word. It's difficult for my clients when asked to modify their food intake as well. Even though they may want the different results, changing jobs and/or relationships is a major emotional, mental, and physical shift and can be scary. Patterns are hard to break. Thank you, dear. And she also writes great points.
But it is they are difficult break, but it's it can be life or death, right?
Yeah, it's self-preservation,
or
isn't
literally
it,
you're torturing yourself for
Yeah.
years and years of your life.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And then you finally get out and you look back and you go, why was I doing that? All the signs were there and I just didn't want to see them.
And can you imagine, you know, the number of you know, the number of people whose potential impact into the community and society is being limited because they are being constrained and chained down because the environments they're in. And you know, if it's as many as 30 or 40%, and let's say it's not just a UK, US stat, that's a global stat, that means that 30 to 40% of the population on this planet is nowhere near its full potential.
Very true.
That's a scary thought in itself, isn't it, when you think about it? And I think coming back to something that you said at the very beginning, Dhiren, of this session, which was suicidal thoughts, because that's a really powerful statement, right? I mean, it's one thing feeling depressed and miserable and gloomy. It's another thing thinking about taking your life. I think one of the other things that I've started to do recently is share more openly on LinkedIn. Now, it's really funny because people don't think LinkedIn is a platform for personal stories, but actually it's becoming more of a platform for personal stories than it's ever been before. And I know, Dhiren, you shared a post, didn't you, not so long ago, and it was
I mean, I've done a radio, 2 radio sessions. You can find the links on my LinkedIn that would talk about go into a lot more depth. You can hear me prattle on for 2 hours. You know, 2 1-hour sessions, but and there's a 3rd session coming up, and then I then set up those actually listing out the different coping mechanisms and stuff. So, and there are other people that have shared in terms of their own ways in which they cope, which is all very, very helpful because you know, all these things really helpful. And but you know, so yes, that's I've started that off on LinkedIn. Yes, I have.
And I would say also, Dhiren, I think what you offered today on the show is very generous of you, which is for people to contact you directly as well if they want to share. Because, you know, I can say this as someone that's your friend. I've known you in a friendly capacity, but actually we also have some really deep conversations about nothing to do with friendship, you know, and actually you are very objective. So I think if there is anybody that's thinking about talking to somebody that's been there, done that, sort of really understands it very, very in great detail, then you would be a wonderful person to reach out to. So
thank you.
I would encourage people to do that.
Very kind
for listening. I do have one final question, Jacalyn, if I may.
Yes,
and
please.
I'm going to zip it because I see it's already 10 to 8. Dhiren, you know, I read out all these sort of phenomenal things that you've done and what you've achieved, and today you've given us a totally different perspective. You spoke about some of your failures and some of the things that haven't quite gone according to plan. What is it inside you that gives you the drive to keep going? Because to me, that is a secret sauce of any entrepreneur, and you absolutely have that secret sauce. But what is it inside you that keeps pushing you along to not give up?
So a very good question is, look, I fundamentally, I want to make the world a better place. I don't want anybody else to suffer the way that I've suffered. I don't want anybody to go through unnecessary hardship. So every time that I'm doing something, my intention is to make the world a better place. And as long as I'm doing that, I feel that gives me purpose. So my transcendent purpose in life is to make the world a better place for other people. And that's what keeps me going, because I think that, you know, as much as I have suffered, is that if I can do something that one less person suffers, then that's worth doing. So every time I've done something, I've tried to find a way that particular thing would help someone or help a group. And then, you know, then I've had another idea. If that hasn't worked for whatever reason and got stuck, I think I'll find another thing, another idea they can do to try and help somebody, or try and find another way to help it. There's loads and loads of ways that we can help someone. So fundamentally is that my transcendent purpose is to try and make the world a better place, and that's what keeps me going. Because if I think, well, if I can help one less person suffer, then that's brilliant. So, and again, that's the thing. I think purpose is very important, and if you purpose is what keeps us going, and you have to have a very strong purpose. If you have the stronger the purpose that you have, the more resilient that you'll be. And in my case, it's my purpose that's kept me going. I can't help feeling that there is a purpose for me to be on this planet and to have experienced what I've experienced. If it can help just one person, then that's great. So purpose.
And I think there's a purpose of why the three of us are here together today. So
absolutely.
A follow-up comment from Ricky, which I think is a great way to close out the show. She writes, that's interesting. Since there's so much talk of transparency in all fields, perhaps it's time business got humanized with some compassion.
Yeah. I'm working on a book called Compassionate Capitalism.
When will it be finished?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason. I mean, there is, people think that it's a zero-sum game, dog eat dog. But when you look at nature, you see a lot of cooperation. Bees exist to pollinate flowers. Flowers exist to give the pollen to the bees, and so on and so forth. There's lots of cooperation going on. And when we are cooperating, is that wonderful, great things happen. Rather than competition, cooperation is the way forward. And it comes back to trust. Is that you can create a us-them environment in the workplace, and a lot of workplaces were like that. If the management think that all the employees are thieving, lying, expletive, then but if you think that we're in it together and it's all about creating structures and environments where cooperation flourishes, then compassion comes with cooperation, not competition.
Brilliant.
I love
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Ricky says, yay, gentlemen, and Jacalyn, thank you for this. I'm so glad I tuned in. Happy new 22. Same to you, Ricky. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. Yeah. Do you know,
Hardeep, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say it's amazing because, when you were talking, Dhiren, it made me realize that you are a change maker, right? And every single thing that you've said, it's all about making change. And so am I in the world of disability. And I think that's where we connect on a really beautiful level. And the other interesting thing, Jacalyn, is Dhiren is a Christian and I'm a Christian. So actually, when we talk about purpose, we can actually share it sometimes from a biblical point of view. And we talk about business, and then we talk about, the sort of, the compassion in the corporate world and collaborating and competition, and you bring it all together and you create something that's really special. So I think it's fascinating to get these different perspectives in this one session. So Dhiren, I think probably all that's left to say is a huge thank you for being on this show.
Thank you. I was wondering what to do this evening, so this is it's been delightful, and it's thank you. If talking was an Olympic sport, I would be captain of the British team. So.
I can agree with that.
Well, it's all been, everything discussed here today is so relevant and pertinent, and you're delivering it with your heart. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dhiren. And I think two of my takeaways from this conversation, Jacalyn, for our listeners from Dhiren is the obvious one is the word compassion. I think it's come up so many times, and I think to be compassionate to others and to love one another. But actually, the other thing you said, Dhiren, which I really liked, was to be observant. And I think being observant in a personal capacity, in a professional capacity, to all those around us, to where we see something that isn't quite right, to pick up on it very quickly and not let sleeping dogs lie, as they say. Just do something about it and reach out. I think that's really powerful. And I'm going to take that away, Dhiren, for me in the new year, is to watch people's patterns and be more observant about what they're doing and what they're not doing. So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, just make sure that you're not doing it in a weird way, okay?
I would say non-threatening way, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Friendly.
All right, Dhiren, I'm going to spotlight you. Please share with our audience, again, especially for people listening on the radio who can't read the banner, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you, and who would you like to reach out to you?
So you can get me on LinkedIn. I'm Dhiren Master, Dhiren Master. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at dhiren.master@hrclarity.ai. And if you want to talk about anything that I've talked about today, feel free to reach out.
All right, thank you. And Ricky, I hope you're going to reach out to both Dhiren and Hardeep. I love connecting people. So, all right, thank you again for being here. I appreciate it. I wish you a very happy new year, and I hope you'll come back and visit us again.
Just invite. It'll be wonderful. It'll be wonderful. Thank you. Have a happy new year.
Thank you, Dhiren.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Wow,
I always feel so sad when I have to remove people. I know. Amazing.
That was actually, you know, I don't like not being the center of attention, just in case you didn't notice that. But today I was way in the background today. I was like, I couldn't say anything because I was just, and as well as I've known this guy, Jacalyn, I mean, I've known him for 8-9 years now. He never ceases to amaze me. He is really quite remarkable. Really quite remarkable.
The things he's accomplished are unbelievable. And to think that he's been feeling this way inside, it's wow. Thank you so much for introducing us to Dhiren. I really appreciate it. And by the way, you being the center of attention, I wasn't aware of that actually. No.
I try and pretend I'm not, but I really do like it. Yeah.
It's a good feeling. It is. I'm going to spotlight you, and if you can share with our audience how to get in touch with you and who you'd like to contact you as well.
Sure. Well, our website is www.kaleidoscope.group. So if anybody with a disability wants to do more about entrepreneurship, wants to raise some money for a great idea, or wants to look for a job, or if any company wants to recruit more people with disabilities, we'd love to hear from you. But I think all I would love to be able to say now is to wish everybody a really happy and fulfilling 2022. I think the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, with COVID and everything we've had to adjust to, has been quite a test, as we've spoken about and as we've heard about today, both in the professional and the personal circumstances. But let's hope with 2022, we've got lots of learnings from the last 2 years that we can put into practice and make it a really special and fulfilling year in 2022 and beyond. So thank you, everyone, for listening, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Thank you very much, everyone. And while we're still here, just to let you know, we have our official launch of USA Global TV on January the 10th. And Hardeep and the other co-hosts, we will all be gathering together for 2 hours from 2 to 4 Eastern time, so that each one of the co-hosts can introduce themselves and share with you the programs that we have and the value that it's going to bring to you, because it's all about you, our audience, and making sure that we're bringing content that's relevant and meaningful to you. So Hardeep, I want to thank you for this incredible, wonderful opportunity that we've had working together in 2021, and I look forward to 2022.
Likewise, Jacalyn. Thank you too, and very happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone. We're going to sign off right now. We've got another show coming up, The Listening Mentor, and we'll be right back with that. Until then, stay safe, and we really do appreciate the interaction. Thank you, Ricky. That was just tremendous, and I know she's already contacted both of you on LinkedIn, I'm sure. So, all right. Take care. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy New Year. Bye.